The core bargain behind the deal is this. Iran has agreed to dramatic new constraints on its nuclear program in return for a lifting of sanctions. What that means in specific terms is that Iran will remove 2/3 of its centrifuges, those are the machines used to enrich uranium, and put them in storage monitored by international inspectors. It will also take almost all of its stockpile of low-enriched uranium and sell it on the international market. The combined effect of both of those things means that if Iran wanted to produce enough weapons-grade uranium for one nuclear bomb, it would take them 12 months at least. So that gives the international community the assurance that it needs that Iran's nuclear program will remain peaceful. In return for that, economic, financial sanctions and an oil embargo should be lifted. This deal is a dramatic defeat for Benjamin Netanyahu, whose advice against signing it has been ignored once again. He's already denounced the deal as a historic mistake, but it's very clear that the US administration is in no mood to listen to his advice. The UN Security Council will pass a resolution giving effect to this deal, and thereafter Iran will go about dismantling its nuclear facilities in line with the agreement. Assuming that Iran keeps the deal, the sanctions will then be lifted, probably in a period of about 6 months or so. And that will be the key test, because from that moment onwards, tens, scores, perhaps even hundreds of billions of dollars of extra revenues will flow into Iran's hands. And the big question will be, will Iran use those to further destabilize the region, or will it use that money for its many pressing domestic needs?
I want the Iranians to know that if I'm the president, we will attack Iran. And I want them to understand that, because it does mean that they have to look very carefully at their society. Because whatever stage of development they might be in their nuclear weapons program in the next 10 years, during which they might foolishly consider launching an attack on Israel, we would be able to totally obliterate them. If I'm the president, we will attack Iran.
The United States and Israel must be closer than ever, stronger than ever, and more determined than ever to prevail against our common adversaries and to advance our shared values. And if I'm fortunate enough to be elected president, the United States will reaffirm we have a strong and enduring national interest in Israel's security. To Israel's enemies, that the United States and Israel stand together, united. It's also why, as president, I will make a firm commitment to ensure Israel maintains its qualitative military edge.
I speak to you today as a lifelong supporter and true friend of Israel. I'm a newcomer to politics, but not to backing the Jewish state. When I'm president, believe me, I will veto any attempt by the UN to impose its will on the Jewish state. It will be vetoed 100%. When I become president, the days of treating Israel like a second-class citizen will end on day one. I love Israel. I love Israel. I've been with Israel so long. There is no daylight between America and our most reliable ally, the State of Israel. That the bond between the United States and Israel is absolutely, totally unbreakable.
And here we go. This is a Fox News election alert. Pennsylvania goes to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. And there's the big board, the 20 electoral votes from the state of Pennsylvania. We just got new metrics in. Donald J. Trump is the president of the United States elect.
President-elect Trump, my friend, congratulations on being elected President of the United States of America. You are a great friend of Israel. Over the years, you've expressed your support consistently, and I deeply appreciate it. I look forward to working with you to advance security, prosperity, and peace. Israel is grateful for the broad support it enjoys among the American people, and I'm confident that the two of us, working closely together, will bring the great alliance between our two countries to even greater heights. May God bless America. May God bless Israel. May God bless our enduring alliance.
So after 3 days of listening to world leaders praise the nuclear deal with Iran, I begin my speech today by saying, ladies and gentlemen, check your enthusiasm at the door. You see, this deal doesn't make peace more likely. By fueling Iran's aggressions with billions of dollars in sanctions relief, it makes war more likely. Now just imagine what Iran will do after those sanctions are lifted. Unleashed and unmuzzled, Iran will go on the prowl, devouring more and more prey. In the wake of the nuclear deal, Iran is spending billions of dollars on weapons and satellites. You think Iran is doing that to advance peace? You think hundreds of billions of dollars in sanctions relief and fat contracts will turn this rapacious tiger into a kitten? If you do, you should think again.
One of the worst deals I've ever seen. The disastrous deal with Iran. One of the dumbest deals and one of the weakest contracts.
The people that negotiated that deal, namely Kerry and his friends, are incompetent.
One of the worst deals ever negotiated.
A significant announcement from the US president, and one with global implications. Donald Trump has decided not to recertify the nuclear deal with Iran, which he called a rogue state. The president blamed Iran for not living up to the spirit of the deal. He cited Iran's hostility towards US interests in the Middle East and the rest of the world.
Importantly, Iran is not living up to the spirit of the deal. So today, in recognition of the increasing menace posed by Iran, and after extensive consultations with our allies, I am announcing a new strategy to address the full range of Iran's destructive actions.
The deal, which took the Obama administration 18 months to negotiate, stopped Iran's nuclear programs in exchange for some international sanctions that were in place for over a decade to be lifted, allowing billions of dollars of Iranian funds to be unfrozen, which Trump claims is being used to fund terrorism.
The regime remains the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism and provides assistance to Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, Hezbollah, Hamas, and other terrorist networks. It develops, deploys, and proliferates missiles that threaten American troops and our allies.
Trump also authorized the Treasury Department to, quote, further sanction the entire Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps for its support for terrorism and to apply sanctions to its officials, agents, and affiliates, and says the new strategy will also seek to address the proliferation of Iran's missiles and weapons.
We will work with our allies to counter the regime's destabilizing activity and support for terrorist proxies in the region. Second, we will place additional sanctions on the regime to block their financing of terror. Third, we will address the regime's proliferation of missiles and weapons that threaten its neighbors' global trade and freedom of navigation. And finally, we will deny the regime all paths to a nuclear weapon.
The president added that in the event a solution is unable to be reached by working with Congress and our allies, the agreement can be canceled by him at any time.
Within an hour, Iran's president took to the air, pushing back hard. Hassan Rouhani called Donald Trump's accusations abusive and downright wrong. Certainly people watching here were stunned by Mr. Trump's claim that back in 2015, the regime was on the verge of collapse. He's really crazy, said shopkeeper Reza Abdul Maliki. Really crazy. Donald Trump, Rouhani said, apparently doesn't understand the U.S. can't change a multinational agreement all by itself. So for that reason, Iran will stay in the nuclear deal. However, he hinted that Iran may escalate its conventional weapons program, possibly its ballistic missile development. For millions of Iranians, especially the young, who counted on improved relations with the U.S. and the rest of the world to bring investment, jobs and reform, this is a black day. They fear hardliners will now gain ground, arguing the U.S. can't be trusted. The only two powers in the region who were cheering are Iran's arch enemies, Saudi Arabia and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
I congratulate President Trump for his courageous decision today. He boldly confronted Iran's terrorist regime. If the Iran deal is left unchanged, one thing is absolutely certain. In a few years' time, the world's foremost terrorist regime will have an arsenal of nuclear weapons, and that's a tremendous danger for our collective future. President Trump has just created an opportunity to fix this bad deal, to roll back Iran's aggression, and to confront its criminal support of terrorism. That's why Israel embraces this opportunity, and that's why every responsible government and any person concerned with the peace and security of the world should do so as well.
France, Germany, the United Kingdom, Russia, China, and Iran all signed the 2015 deal, and they're speaking out against Trump's decision. The leaders of France, Germany, and the UK released a joint statement saying they stand committed to the deal. And Russia said Trump's decision was doomed to fail and that decertifying the deal wouldn't really impact the agreement's implementation. Iran's president said the nuclear deal couldn't be ended by a single country, but the country has also warned it might withdraw from the deal because of sanctions.
Doug McGregor is a retired colonel. He's now executive vice president at Burke McGregor Group. He's the author of the book Margin of Victory, 5 Battles That Changed the Face of Modern War. Colonel McGregor, thanks for coming on.
Sure.
What does this mean and where's it going from here?
Look, this is a very curious case. I haven't figured out how we benefit from decertifying the Iranian agreement and then potentially sliding into a conflict with Iran. Because if we decertify Iran, the Senate will probably pass sanctions. Sanctions will be treated as an act of war by Iran. The Iranians will then say we have no further incentive to cooperate. They will double down on building nuclear warheads. They will probably get assistance this time from the Russians. We will inevitably collide with them militarily somewhere in the Gulf, in the Indian Ocean, or on the ground, where we have very light, vulnerable forces right now in Iraq. And Iraq is effectively an Iranian ally. It's a Shiite Arab state.
Right.
So you put all of this together and you have to ask yourself, what are we doing? How does this make sense? How do we benefit from this? Because we don't want a wider war. And clearly candidate Trump made it very clear that he did not want to widen any wars. He wanted to gradually disengage.
So what would be the point of this then? How did this happen?
I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense strategically. The timing is terrible. Our forces are spread very thinly around the globe. We have very light forces on the ground, entirely dependent upon air power for survival. If they are taken under direct assault by the Iranians, supported by the Russians, they're in a lot of trouble, and we would have a great deal of difficulty getting them out of there alive. We could easily be embarrassed, is the bottom line. It would take us a very long time to assemble any troops to go in there. And the notion that somehow or another with bombing or missiles we are going to subjugate Iran or bring it around is simple nonsense, because they will be backed by Russia. So those strategies have no chance of success. I wish, frankly speaking, that we would back away and rethink this whole thing, because I think the timing is terrible. This is not the time to do anything like this. And frankly, the Iranians are not going to renegotiate this thing. It took a long time to get it. Plus, our allies, our friends, everyone else in the world does not see Iran in the same light as we do in Washington, or as Israel does. They see the Sunni Arabs and the Sunni Turks, the Islamists in Ankara, the Islamists in Saudi Arabia and in the Middle East, as far, far more dangerous and hostile to Christians and Jews in the West than Iran.
Yeah, well, look at the body count. It proves that point.
Yes.
Colonel, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Okay.